So you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses, and you've read Fourth Wing, and you have no idea where to go next in the romantasy genre. Well, here's my master list to the new adult romance genre. I'm talking 20 plus book recommendations for you, split into 3 categories. We have romance forward romantasy. This is the romantasy where I typically think of them as duologies or standalones. There is a pretty big focus on the couple and the couple's journey in these. They are still epic. There is still cool world building, but there's definitely a frontal focus on the couple themselves and exploring their relationship and journey as like a forefront to the plot. Even though there is still cool plot in all of these, I think this is perfect for people who are romance readers first and are looking to get into romantasy. Then we have fantasy leaning romantasy. As I said before, there's still romance in these. There's still a want for a lovable couple, a perfect couple, but there's also this grand scale of these, this epic plot to them that sometimes takes a forefront to the couple. These typically are longer series. The couples might not always be together in the entire series. It's just this like epic scope of romantasy. Perfect for the fantasy lovers in my opinion. And then the last category is what I call fun time reads. These probably could fit into either of the other 2 categories, but when I'm recommending them, the first thing that comes to my mind is that these are fun reads. These are reads that are going to make you have a good time. They're typically slump breakers. They're just like an overall good vibe story. Maybe not the best overall in plot or romance, but you will have a great time reading them. They're typically fast paced and just a whole lot of fun. Let's start with the romance forward romantasy, and a reminder that these are still pretty epic in plot and scope. It's just like a little difference in my head about the priorities of them. This category typically has some of my all-time favorites, and we will start with my literal favorite romantasy of all time, which is Serpent in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent, and just the Crowns of Nyaxia series as a whole. This is a series of 3 duologies. This is the first duology that I'm recommending. This follows our main character, who is a human living in a vampire world. She has been raised by the vampire king, and the world is always out to get her. She has to watch her back at all times, so she wants one thing. She wants power. She wants to be able to fight back to the vampires around her. So she joins the Kajari, which happens once in a while. I don't remember the actual time frame. And if you win the Kajari, which is a fight to the death, you can ask the god for literally anything you want, and she's going to ask for power to stand up against the vampires. And now she's in a tournament with all vampires though, so how is she going to make it to the end? She has to team up with Rain, who's another vampire, and make a reluctant allies to lovers situation. I love this duet. I think it's perfect. It's my favorite romantasy. It has everything I've ever wanted. So this is my #1 recommendation for you. And I think it opens a lot of doors for you because you can just read the first duet or you can read both duets. There's another one still coming. There's also some side books in this. This one is a lot of fun. I feel like this has the perfect balance of epic scope of like a regular fantasy forward one because there is an epic scope to the whole scale of the series, but it fits the romantasy forward with just being little duets or standalones within a grand series. Oh look, my second favorite romantasy of all time, House of Bane and Blood by Alexis Elmenard. This actually just got traditionally published, so it looks a little bit different. We see it looking like this now. I actually love this cover. This also is a duology that's going to be in a larger world at some point, but we only have the first duology out currently, and I love Nico and Camilla's story so much. Camilla is the heiress to a family, but her family is bankrupt, and so in order to get her out of bankruptcy, it is her duty as the only female to marry off for money, essentially. Her brothers have someone lined up, but she doesn't like that person, so she decides to take her power into her own hands and choose who she wants to marry, which is actually her family's greatest rival. And there's a whole war with magic users and non-magic users happening, and there's secrets to be discovered. It's very Peaky Blinders meets A Marriage of Convenience, and I loved that. I ate it up. I definitely recommend this one. I think it's so incredible, especially if you're looking for a couple who it's like us against the world. Once these two get together, the story is about them fighting the outside world, which I think is what I like about romantasy forward ones often, is that the first book is about them coming together, and then we have a duology, so then the second book is not about them breaking up because they have to be together by the end of the duology. So I think that's why romance forward can really work for me, is I love seeing couples fight against the world, and this is one of the best. Same duologies in a grander world. We have The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. This is an arranged marriage again. We have our main character who is raised from birth for one thing and one thing only, to kill the king of the Bridge Kingdom once she marries him. And she does that. Well, maybe, but she attempts it. She marries the king of the Bridge Kingdom, and then obviously things happen. This one is very political, but also very much about the couple, and I really, really love this one and recommend it to everyone. I feel like it's a staple in the romantasy genre. It's been around for a while, and there are 3 duets. One of my favorite books of this year is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This is a standalone in a series of standalones. The second book is actually also out in Chantra, which you could read as well. well. In this series of standalones, we're following a main character who goes into a trial for some reason and ends up falling in love in like whatever reluctant allies to lover situation she gets herself into. In the first one, we follow Ophelia, who enters Phantasma to save her sister in order to get through the trials, which Phantasma is essentially a house full of ghosts, and there's trials that happen, deadly trials. Like, this has deadly trials. These trials stick in my brain. Like, there's one that I will absolutely never forget, but there's a couple in here that really shocked me in a good way, because I was like, holy crap, that's brutal. Sometimes trials don't get brutal enough for me. But she makes a deal with one of the ghosts in this house to help her survive, help her make it to the end, because she's a little bit of an underdog, because at the end she'll be able to rescue her sister. There's obviously secrets and stuff, and don't really make a deal with the devil, the ghost. That's always been something she's been told to never do. I think this is chef's kiss. The writing in this is absolutely stunning in my opinion, and if you are a simp for Danny Phantom, if you watched Danny Phantom as a kid and were like, oh my god, I love him, you will love the love interest in this one, 100%. Next up, I have two recs kind of built into one. We have Slaying the Shadow Prince and Blood and Steel by Helen Schuer. These are part of the same series. This is a standalone and this is a quartet. However, in my opinion, you have to read the standalone at some point to really read Blood and Steel, but you can read this and never read Blood and Steel. And this is my favorite book of the series. But let me talk about Blood and Steel first, because I think the reading order is technically like book 1 and 2 of this and then this one, but I read this one first. In this world, we follow a prophecy where a female will wield a blade and darkness will descend. And so this is taken very literally, and every female is not allowed to ever have a blade on them because the shadow race are slowly taking control, and they're worried if they do, that's the end of them as they know it, like the end of humans. We follow our main character Althea, who wants one thing and one thing only, to be a war sword of Thesmar, which are like the magic warriors essentially. And she is going to stop at nothing, literally nothing, until she is one. So she's gonna wield that blade. And will that prophecy come true? This is a mentor-mentee relationship. I feel like when I say the concept of this, it feels more fantasy leaning, but in my opinion, although this is 4 books long, Wilder and Althea are like the premise of this story. It is about their romance. It's about their relationship. It is will they, won't they throughout this quite a bit. If you love a hot and cold relationship, this is the series for you. But I loved Wilder Hawthorne, and I loved all the training scenes in this. I liked the world building as well, but I just definitely think it took a backseat to Wilder and Althea in this. Recommended reading order, I think, of the first 2 of this, and then this one. This one is a prequel, and these characters do matter eventually. The plotline of this does matter eventually in this series. So you definitely do have to read this in my opinion. Drew belongs to a fallen kingdom. The Shadow Race have kind of taken over and they're hiding underground. And although women aren't allowed to wield blades in this world, they're so far from like the capital that they can do pretty much whatever they want. And Drew is a warrior who wants to do one thing. She wants to hunt down and kill all Shadow Race that killed her family. Enter Talamir Starling, who was a secret. He is a war sword of Thesmar and he's coming to help them get rid of the Shadow Race. But his secret is that he was touched by a Shadow Wraith and is now half Shadow Wraith. And as Drew and Talamir make a reluctant bond or reluctant allies to lover situation, what will happen when Drew finds out Talamir's secret? Chef's kiss, amazing. This one's just a little standalone and I loved it. I love Talamir Starling. And Drew is feisty in my opinion, but so good as a character, and the writing in this is chef's kiss. And lastly in this category is The Ever King by L.J. Andrews, the Ever King duet. This one follows Prince Eric, who belongs to the Everseas. He's like the ruler of the Everseas. He has been locked in his kingdom, essentially a prisoner. But when the daughter of his enemy accidentally lets him free, he steals her and takes her back in order to try and get her father to come rescue her, and then he can kill her father. But what happens when they fall in love? What happens when he wants to kill her father still, but he's like, oh my god, she's amazing? What happens then? You know? That's what this is. I feel like this gave me a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, just with the pirates. They might not have been as vicious enough, but in my opinion, Eric is a morally gray man. He definitely does some stuff that I was like, oh my god, what are you doing? But also he believed in his crew, which I loved. I loved the like crew vibe of being on a pirate ship. I also liked the magic in this. Essentially his kingdom is dying. There's like a disease to it, and he thinks that like his enemy is the reason for that disease. And I just feel like the politics in this, like his ruling was never safe. Like there were people coming after him and stuff like that who thought that they could do a better job ruling it. I think that this was such a fun story, and I really loved the banter in this between our 2 leads. Very romance forward in my opinion. Very romance forward. Like don't go into it expecting like epic scope, but it's an incredible read. Let's switch on over to the fantasy leaning romantasy. This is a pretty big stack. My first recommendation is probably the one I'm going to recommend you start with. Like if you are new to romantasy, but you want fantasy leaning, pick up Quicksilver by Callie Hart. This blew up last year and there's a reason for it. It was absolutely incredible. It has the perfect blend, I think, of romance, but there is definitely this really cool fantasy world and a focus on the plot and what's happening in this. We follow our main character who is whisked away to another world and makes a deal with a character in order to get back and save her family, essentially. That's kind of all I want to tell you. I feel like going into this blind is like a really good idea, but it's so intricate. There's like different creatures in this, and the magic system was kind of cool with her being like a smith and making weapons and stuff. She ends up trying not only to save her own life, but saving the life of a whole kingdom. And I really enjoyed this. I thought like the labyrinth at the end was really cool. Like I definitely heavily recommend this for a start in the romantasy genre that's more fantasy leaning. Next up we have the Kindred's Curse saga, which starts with Spark of the Everflame. This one's a hard recommendation for me to give you because I actually hated this first book. I gave this first book 2 stars because I just thought the main character was suffocatingly annoying. However, you can see books 2 and 3 on the shelf right there. I absolutely loved them. I gave them 5 stars. The character growth, all of it, absolutely incredible. So I think if I reread this book, I would appreciate this book more because I think this book is really a starting point for the growth we see in our main character. And I love the series now, and I think it's something very unique, even though book 1 does not read as unique. But if you're starting or you're new to the genre, it probably will to you. In this, we follow our main character, DM, who's been told one thing by her family: never go near the Descended. The Descended are the gods chosen. The gods came down, essentially, and they fell in love with mortals, and they had babies with mortals, and they tied their lives to the mortals because they didn't want to just like rule forever without the love of their life. So what was left in their wake were the Descended, which were those children. And they have the magical abilities of the gods, and so they think they're better than the just regular humans now. And so DM's been told to never go near them, but when her mother dies, she takes over her mother's job, which was as a healer to the Descended, and that leads her into some murky situations as she meets Luther. And we love Luther. We stan Luther. He's one of the best book boyfriends, second probably only to Nico, who is from House of Bane and Blood. We're getting a little bit darker with this one, but the Legacy series by Melissa K. Roig. I probably could also recommend the Lady of Darkness series, but I personally didn't love the Lady of Darkness series, but a lot of people do, especially if you're a Throne of Glass lover. But I think ACOTAR lovers will prefer this. This one we have the Legacies and the Fae. And in this world, the Fae have a job for the Legacies, and it's like the best thing that you could ever be told you're going to do. It's an honor to be bestowed this position, which is to become the chosen of one of the legacy families, or the chosen of a legacy. They use the Fae, they suck their power, and they enhance their own power, essentially. And we are in a time of the choosing, when our main character has done everything her whole life to never stand out so that she's never chosen. She accidentally stands out to one of them, the meanest, darkest family of legacies. And of course she's chosen. And there's a whole world of what is going on. I think there's a really great discussion on choice and fate and things like that in this that I really enjoyed. It's a little bit darker, but it's very complex, and there's a really cool plot happening in this as well, expanded past that. A story I've been shouting about quite often this year is Zodiac Academy. This is a long series, so buckle up for it, but it is incredible, and it reads exactly like a CW show. Like if you liked Vampire Diaries, One Tree Hill, Gossip Girl, Supernatural, Pretty Little Liars, anything like that, this reads like one of them, with obviously the fantasy elements, if it's one without fantasy elements, but it just has like an equal amount of plot and drama to it that I really loved. We're following 2 sisters in this one. There is romance. They each have a very heavy romance plotline. It's definitely a romantasy, but it is fantasy forward because we do follow 2 sisters. We're not following strictly the POV of a couple, which I can also tell you this one doesn't as well in later books. We follow 2 sisters who learned that they are the long lost heirs to the Solaria throne. They are broke, and they learned that they have an inheritance that's waiting for them. But in order to get that inheritance, they have to go to Zodiac Academy and graduate. So that's what they do. And when they get there are these men who have been told their whole lives that they are going to rule because the heirs were lost. They don't want to give that up. So they decide to bully the heirs to try to make them leave, to give up so that they never graduate and then they can never rule Solaria. The thing is, the girls don't want it, but now they might because the men are being so annoying about it. Men. But there are some really incredible romances in this that I absolutely swoon over. But there's also just like a really cool epic plot line because the kingdom is under attack from like the nymphs and things like that. And the magic in this is really cool with like different creatures being fae. So like how they get their magic is based around what type of fae they are. So there's vampire fae, there's werewolf fae, there's unicorn fae, there's dragon fae, and if you are a vampire fae, to re-get your magic, to give your magic more strength, you have to drink the blood of other magic users, and the stronger that magic user, the stronger you're probably going to be, things like that. Or like werewolves go run around in the moonlight in their wolf form kind of thing. So I thought that was really interesting. It was a unique twist on all these types of creatures we know and love, and I love a story that has multi-creatures and stuff in it. So I definitely recommend this one. It's a lot of fun. It is a long series, but they go so fast. They read so quickly, and you will love the story of the sisters in this. There's also like messy drama and family politics. Like, it's truly a CW show. A newer one to this list is Shield of Sparrows by Daphne Perry. I gave this one 4 stars. I think most of the books on this list I've given 5 stars, but I loved the creatures and the monsters in this, and that's why I'm recommending it, because I feel like people who were more deeply invested into that aspect than wanting more romance did really, really enjoy this one. We follow our main character who isn't supposed to be married off, but she ends up being married off. She has grown her whole life knowing that her sister was going to be married off to another kingdom. Her sister's been trained as a spy to get information from that kingdom that her parents need. But when that kingdom comes to collect its bride, they get smart. And they learn clauses, and instead of marrying her sister, they end up marrying her. And she has been kind of just like left on her own. Her sister was the only thing that mattered to the parents, so she hasn't been trained, she knows nothing, and now she's supposed to spy for her parents, but she has no skills, and she knows nothing of the world. We're kind of just learning the world with her for the first time, and I thought that was really interesting. There's some really cool monsters in this. Essentially every like century or so, these like giant birds, carnivorous birds, fly over, and if you are seen out, they will dive down and kill you and eat you, essentially. So people have to like hide, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. It's really, really interesting. I believe a lot of people, including myself, compared it to The Witcher, but in romantasy form. A slower story for you would be Blood Mercy by Villa Roth. This is also a really long series full of chunky boys. This is for anyone who wants like a cinnamon roll love interest and loves political stories. This is very much about politics. We follow our 2 characters, Leo and Cassia. Cassia is a human, Leo is a vampire. They're kind of always hated each other, essentially, and they get together every once in a while, I think it's like every 100 years, to make a new treaty. And so it's treaty making time, and they actually stumble upon each other, and they learn that not everything is as it seems. They probably shouldn't hate each other's kind as much as they do, and they embrace each other's differences as they fall in love and try to remake an alliance that is falling apart between the vampires and the humans. And it is very, very in-depth politics, and the vampires in this are so unique. They're essentially like a new breed of creatures. Like, calling them vampires almost does them a disservice because of how much unique lore and stuff has been built into who they are, but they definitely have some typical vampire traits like blood drinking and not going out in daylight and things like that. So I see the vampire comparison. I still call them vampires, but they are a whole new breed of something. It's so beautifully done. The world building in this is so rich. Definitely recommend this one for any like slow burn, slow building, wanting a lot of just like learning everything about a world. Like, you learn everything. It's very, very much slice of life. You learn everything about the vampire cultures, the human cultures, things like that within this story. And it's really, really well done and beautifully written. A little urban fantasy next for you is City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. This one was hard to put on either list because I feel like the first one is a little bit more romance forward, but the rest of the books in this series are definitely more plot forward. In this, we're following our main character, who is human. She has no powers, she's got nothing, but for some reason bounty hunters are after her, and she doesn't know why because she's powerless. But one of our bounty hunters, who is one of the most deadly, takes an interest because he's also like, why the heck are people interested in you? Why is there this big money over your head when you are nothing? And he actually ends up agreeing to protect her as he figures out why exactly there is this thing on her head. And it's very intricate, very interesting. I love an urban setting. I thought that was really interesting and things like that, and I did really enjoy the story. I'm on book 3. I've read book 1 and 2, but I definitely would recommend this, especially if you like an urban setting. I know I compared things to A Court of Thorns and Roses and Fourth Wing, but I've heard this really heavily compares to Crescent City. I just haven't read Crescent City yet, so definitely a recommendation. Oh, and Darien Castle is that man. He is so sweet. I know he's this big bad bounty hunter demon, but that man cares about her and he shows it. True peak. If they want to, they would, because he does. That's all. Next up, we have Windweaver by Julie Johnson. This is a new one that I fell in love with this year. Very fantasy leaning in my opinion. It's got elemental magic. We follow our main character who is partially fae, and she lives in a world where the fae are being persecuted. And at the beginning of the story, she has been caught and and she is going to be murdered because she's Fae. She's essentially going to be burned alive. When someone comes in a mask and he's supposed to be the one that kills her, he actually ends up saving her. He takes her on a long journey back to the kingdom of the Fae that she had no idea existed, and she learned that there is so much more at stake than what she thought. Not just her own life, not just the life of the persecuted half-Fae, but she is one of the 4 elemental that can save the world due to a prophecy. I'm not sure if it's a love triangle. I'm not sure if it's why choose. I'm not really sure what's going on, but I love both love interests equally, and I feel like that's hard to do, especially if it's going to be a love triangle. There's always one that I don't like as much, but I love them both equally, and so it's really hard to pick. But I just also loved the fantasy aspect in this one. It's a very slow journey, and you learn a lot because she's learning about the world for the first time, so you're learning it through her, and I think the plot in this story as it goes on will be epic. This is only the first one out. The second one is not out yet, but it will be out next year. I will recommend one that I didn't actually love is When the Moon Hatched. I think that this is a must read for all romantasy lovers. I didn't love it. I don't like an amnesia trope, and this has an amnesia trope, but I do understand why people do love this one. It's very, very epic in scope. It's very fantasy driven. There is a lot going on in it, a lot of like dragon stuff, and I think that lots of people love this. A lot of fantasy leaning romantasy lovers love this story. So I really wanted to recommend it and put it on this list, even though I personally didn't love it. I definitely think it's something you should try to see if you love, especially because it is very, very fantasy leaning. Like, I honestly think the romance takes a really big hit in it to make the fantasy elements a little bit more center stage. And then I have Heavenly Bodies by Amani Aru. It's been a while since I read this, honestly, because I read it back when it was indie published, and it has since been traditionally published. This is the Fairy Loot edition. There's a lot focused on like the world building and the stars in this. We follow a world where there is a prophecy about our main character. She will fall in love with a star, and that'll be a star's downfall. And so we have a star that takes that to heart and decides he cannot be the one that she loves. So he decides to make it his mission to essentially like torture her, to do everything possible to make it so that she will not love him, including killing her family. So he comes down, he kills essentially her entire family, and she escapes to a neighboring nation, and she makes reluctant allies to lovers there. There have been some changes since I've read it in the traditionally published version, and I think there are some pretty drastic changes. So I hope that that whole thing is correct now. I think things might happen just a little bit different, but this was a little trope heavy in my opinion, but the magic in the world definitely took center stage in this for me over the romance. So I definitely wanted to recommend it. And I always love to recommend books that didn't necessarily work for me in recommendation videos, and Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent is not a favorite of mine, but I wanted to recommend it here because I do think it is very, very, very fantasy forward. Mentor-mentee relationship, very epic in scope. So I did want to put it here. I don't have a lot to say about it because I personally did not love this series as a whole. I have read the entire series, but I know a lot of people love this story. I think a lot of When the Moon Hatched girlies love this story. So they both didn't work for me. It also has an amnesia trope in it at some point, but I wanted to throw it out here in this list for you. And we've made it to our final category. We've made it to the fun time reads. There's not a lot here, but these are some of my favorite fun time reads. Like, I don't know how else to explain it. They're not like my personal like all-time favorites. Well, a couple of them actually are, but they're just good time, good vibe stories. I mean, let's start it off strong with Direbound by Sable Sorensen. This is a new book. The second book comes out next year, and I ate this up. This is so similar to Fourth Wing, but also has so much unique to it at the same time that I really do think it stands out. We're essentially following our main character who tries to save her sister. Her sister has been taken, and she needs to go to the war front to save her. So she signs up to go to the army. However, the day she signs up is Direbound Day. She accidentally signs up to be bound to a direwolf. So she has to climb the mountain, bond to a direwolf, or die trying. And then she comes back and she has to go to an academy to learn how to bond to your direwolf, how to work with your direwolf, and essentially be the elite soldiers of this society. However, it's cruel as fuck. The Direbound are cruel. You know, in Fourth Wing, a rider without its dragon is dead. This takes it to a whole new level. If a direwolf smells weakness in you, sees weakness in you, they'll murder you. They'll also murder themselves, and they'll murder their own partners, not just other people's. It is brutal, but it is so good. This was so fun, so fast paced. I binged this essentially in a day, and it is not a short book, so this is seriously a fun time read. You will have a lot of fun with this. I think as the series goes on, it could gravitate to other categories quite a bit, but this first book especially was just so fun. Another seriously fun read for me was the Broken Pond series by Jay Burry. This is a 6-book long series that I binged literally back to back. There was no stopping me. I had to read the next book every single time I finished a book. The audiobooks are really good. This is a Why Choose series, so I know that could turn some people off, but I definitely think it's so fun that you will enjoy it no matter what. So Why Choose means that she doesn't have to pick between men. It's not a love triangle. It is essentially a giant relationship with all the men. It's not always poly because not always the men interact. I do think in this book at times they do, but I wouldn't call it a poly relationship. But she has relationships relationships with all of them, and they've all consented to it. In this, our main character is super strong, and she thinks that bonding with her bonds will make her too strong, and she will accidentally destroy everything she loves. So she runs away and tries to never bond with them, and that makes them angry, and they find her and track her down and kind of keep her prisoner, but not really prisoner, until she bonds with them. And it's incredible. And there's so much going on. It's very, very like urban fun, paranormal fun. Let's get my other why choose out of the way, which is Bonded by Thorns. In my opinion, the series becomes so much more, but the first book is very, very fun. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but a why choose. Our main character's dad trespasses on these princes' land, and they take him prisoner. She offers herself up as prisoner for his freedom. He goes free. She ends up making a deal with them because she learns that they are cursed to essentially lose their magic and become wolves at nighttime until they find their true love. So she says, I'll help you find your true love. Little does she know she's all of their true love. And that's not a spoiler, it's a why choose. So much fun. Really, really enjoyed this one. And then we have Silver Elite by Danny Francis, which is a dystopian romantasy, a little bit more romance heavy than dystopian in my opinion, although I still liked the themes in it, but I know there's discussions on how this isn't dystopian enough. I think it could get dystopian enough in future books, but I think this is truly just a fun time read. We're following our main character who, in this world, at some point there was like bombs and stuff dropped, and some of the people were altered by the gas and given power. And right now those people with the power are being discriminated against and put into essentially like concentration camp. And she's hiding her power when she kind of accidentally gives it away. People are sus on her and they want to keep her like under their watch, so they sign her up to this military academy because he's like a general of the military academy and they train her, and she decides to maybe take them down from the inside. It's a lot of fun. The romance in this was a lot of fun in my opinion. I love the romantasy genre. It's been so fun for me to dive into, and so I hope that you can take some of my staples. Like, I ripped all of my favorite books off of my shelves to talk to you today about, and I hope that you find your new favorite in this pile as well. If you want some more recommendations from me, I will leave them on the screen for you to check out. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me a purple heart. Let me know if you have any romantasy recommendations for me down below as well, and have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.